Welcome back to the She Thrives Influential Women podcast. I am your host, Lori Murphy. I am an empowerment coach for women, public speaker, published author, as well as an award-winning author, and the host of this amazing podcast. It is so good to be here with all of you today. If you, by any chance, are new to this podcast, please do not forget to hit that subscribe button. Please leave a review. Your reviews and subscription that keeps this podcast going so that it reaches at women across the world so that they can continue to be influenced in a positive way. And if there is any way that I can be of service to you and help you in your journey, I will provide my, contacts at the end of this podcast as well in the description. I'd love to be able to get on a call with you and be able to connect with you. But today I have an amazing guest. I have Cathy Derken. She is amazing. Her and I connected recently. She is just a fabulous person. So Cathy is the founder of her own company, Inspired Ten Tenacity, excuse me, I say that wrong. Global Solutions. She is a disruptor and catalyst dedicated to improving the lives of the women in her community and around the world. Cathy helps women discover their brilliance, find their voice, and step into new possibilities in their life. Cathy is an international speaker and 15 times #1 best-selling author with stories that inspire the readers to take a leap of faith into reaching their goals. Wow, that is amazing. 15 times. It is an honor to have you. And she has created a platform supporting women to share their own inspiring stories and wisdom in multi-author books, including a wide range of themes. Cathy, how are you today?
I am wonderful. Thank you for having me.
I am so happy to have you. 15 times #1 best-selling author. That is incredible.
Yeah, and they've all been anthologies, so multi-author books, and I love that whole platform of sharing our stories and supporting each other with our own journeys, and that is
Yeah.
my favorite thing to do.
Oh, wow. And so, do you have any books where you just are the primary sole author, or are all of the books that you've ever been a part of that you've authored or helped publish, are they all anthologies?
They're all anthologies, and so far there's been four of them that are my projects. So ones that I have created and brought together the group of women, and we got it published and hit our international #1 bestseller. So it's become the main thing that I do in my work is creating books to give other women that opportunity as well.
That's awesome. Now, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and how you got into this line of work.
Well, it is a twisted story. It's definitely not something you would have predicted. And I live on the west coast of Canada, so near Vancouver, and I have been doing this, I guess it's been about 5 years now. And I started out just as one of the authors in other people's books, and
Mhm.
that's how I got to 15. And so far, I've worked with 9 different publishing groups. The books have been on many different themes. And and yeah, so if you had asked me even 5 years ago if I thought I was going to be actually building a business and a career in publishing and being an author, I probably would have laughed at you at that point because there was absolutely no plan for this. There was no inkling this was the direction I was going in at that time. So far, I've gone through 2 complete career changes. So my first career was in medical genetics. Then I worked in financial planning. And at that time, all I really knew was my goal was to do something that created a true impact in the lives of women. And I knew I wanted to do it on a scale that could really reach women around the world. But
Mhm.
beyond that, I had no idea what that was going to look like. I was kind of trusting my intuition and my gut and just thinking, okay, what is my thing that I can bring to the world? And so it's been about almost 4 years ago now that I started my business. And even when I started my business, I wasn't exactly sure what it was going to be, but again, trusting my intuition and following that path of, okay, what is my thing?
Hmm.
And so it's really been about, I guess, about 3 years now since it really hit me. And that's when I had already been doing, I think I'd probably done 8 books at that point with other people. And so just one of the authors and other people's projects. And I loved it. I loved, one of the things I love about the most is that each book is a different community. So you're bringing together different groups of people for all of these projects. So
Hmm.
you're meeting new people, you're connecting with new ideas, doors open and different speaking opportunities or communities to become part of. And so that's one of the things I just love about doing anthologies. And so it hit me. I
Hmm.
thought, you know what? I love this. I need to bring this opportunity to other women. And
Yeah.
here we are.
So, so you have been doing this now for 5 years. And in the last 3 years is when you really honed in on that niche. What was it that helped you get to that? This is truly what my niche is. How did you finally narrow it down to this is it?
Yeah. 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 I think a big part of it, again, looking for that thing that I knew was creating a true impact and helping women change their life. And it was, I guess, about just over 3 years ago, and I was in other people's books, projects, and I was in one at one point where one of the groups, it was an amazing group that everything
Hmm.
ran smoothly, it was fun, it was exciting, and the other group was I don't want to say a nightmare, but it was very stressful and it did not go smoothly.
Hmm.
And I being kind of in the middle between these two projects at the same time, it hit me, this should be easy and fun. This should be something that any woman that wants to share their story can step into. And I
Hmm.
think that's where I first got that feeling of, you know what, this is what I need to do. I need to make this simple and easy for other women to step in. And so I literally went to the publishing group that I really enjoyed working with and I proposed a collaboration. I'm like, well, how about if I create my books and themes and I bring together my groups of ladies and then you look after the publishing end for us? And the rest is history.
That's awesome. So you took an experience that you were having and and it encouraged you to really hear that this is something that I'm passionate about. That's incredible. So what types of topics has your anthologies basically give us some ideas like your topics, different
Yeah,
ones
yeah.
that you've brought into life.
Yes, yeah. So the ones that I bring together are always focused on themes that women are inspired to read about and write about, and really looking for that idea that we support and encourage each other through our stories. So through our own triumphs or challenges or just what we've been through in our life, those stories help other women come through similar things.
Hmm.
And so some of the examples of the books that I've done, um, Embrace Courage, Midlife Awakening, Ripple Effect of Impact. And my previous career, like I mentioned, I originally was in medical genetics. So women that work in science and tech are always, have a sweet spot in my heart. So one of the other books was Women Transforming the Landscape of Science and Tech. We've got
Hmm.
one now, The Evolution of Leadership in STEM. And so themes like that, and some of the ones that I'm still bringing people into and we're creating. One is passion, purpose, and possibilities. Another one is women transforming leadership in business and community. So, you kind of get a feel for that. It's, themes that women are sharing their journey and how did they get to where they are now? What are those tools, strategies, tips that they could share with their reader?
Hmm.
And so it really becomes a fun way, and especially for those of us that are entrepreneurs, to be both sharing our journey, but also what we're up to now. Because for most of us, it's what we're passionate about, and that's why we're doing this.
Sure.
And so it also becomes a great way to introduce the reader to what you do, why you do it, how you could help them. And so, it's a great way to really connect people broadly that way.
That's awesome. So if you were to look back toward like your childhood or even your teenage years, Was writing something you've always been passionate about in books? No?
No, no. I've always loved books. There's some kind of like just an almost on an emotional energy level. I just love having a book and being connected with a book, but I'm actually dyslexic. So reading, spelling, all of those things were always a challenge for me through
Hmm.
school and even today, I'm a very slow reader. Most of the books that I absorb, I love to listen to Audible. So I go through a lot of books in a year, but it's usually listening to them because for me to actually read the books, I am a slow reader.
I can relate to that. So I actually was diagnosed as an adult with ADHD, which is something that when I heard it, when my doctor, said that and my therapist even said it, I was just like, well, that makes a lot of sense because even when I was young, I was a very slow reader and it was very hard for me to process things that I was reading. So even now, when I sit down and try to read, sometimes I have to read the same page like 3 or 4 times to really kind of register what I'm reading.
Yes, yes,
But when I listen
yeah,
to Audible, for some reason it just absorbs a lot easier.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And I'm the same way. And so yes, so going through school, I was always told that you're not a good reader, and of course, my spelling has never been good either. So if it wasn't for spell check, we would not be here right now.
Thank God for technology.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And that's why I have a whole team of professionals that look after the actual editing and formatting and all of those sorts of things because I would never be a professional editor.
Right. And what's encouraging about what you just said is you don't have to be, the best writer. You don't have to be able to like pronounce words correctly. You don't have to, you can have, spelling errors and still be a writer. Like you don't have to be perfect in
Yeah,
order to write. You just have to have a story to tell.
yes. And we all do. And that's one of the things too I run into quite often, especially with women, that they feel like their story's not big enough or that that no one really wants to hear their story. And just in sitting down and having these conversations about them sharing their journey and what they've been through, and it's always so easy to pull out this story and these details that and really that's where I got started in doing books in the first place because I had gone through a divorce, a complete career change. I had two teenagers that had gone through the whole family drama of living in a toxic, abusive family situation, getting out of there, starting over as, a family with a single mom. And it was really that feeling that my story was one that could help other women going through similar things. That's where it all started. That there was a local group here who had been doing books for a while, and I'd been aware of their books, and I had never had a feeling that was for me.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until the one book came along, and it was Emotional Intelligence, Mental Health Matters, and I really felt that my story needed to be in that book. It was almost like a calling of that's my book. I need to be in that book.
Yeah.
And at that time I was working a job. I was working in the finance industry at that time. So I wasn't promoting anything. I had no other reason to get my story out there except that feeling that my story needs to be there to help other women going through similar things. And so really that whole feeling of how a story can change somebody else's life was where I started at the very beginning.
Yeah. You overcame something that I think a lot of women struggle with. And hearing stories like yours, to be able to say that you walked away from like you said, an abusive situation, you moved your family and started over. I think that's probably one of the scariest things that we face when we're in those situations. And a lot of women don't know that they can get out of it.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And then to do a complete career change in the middle of all of that was definitely, I describe it like I threw my life up in the air and reinvented it on the way back down.
Now, how old were your kids when you made the decision that you had enough and you were starting over, you were getting out?
They must have been about 15 and 16. And that they were, that I think was one of the big things that really pushed me into making that decision, because obviously for years I'd been kind of putting up with the situation we were in. And I think many of us, we kind of put up with bad marriages with that idea that we got to stay together for the kids,
Hmm.
that we need to, maintain a stable family situation for the kids. And then it hit me how the toxic, abusive environment we were living in, how it was impacting them.
Mm.
And it really, I'm not sure why I'd been blind to it for so long, but when it hit me and I realized, what kind of relationship, like what kind of role model am I being of this is what a marriage is and this is what how people should treat each other. That clearly was not something that was I was doing well with. But even the whole idea of how is this impacting their life and their development, especially as teenagers, when you're really making those decisions about how do you treat other people, how do you want to be treated by other people, what's your value as a person. And really that's when it hit me that I have to get us out of here. I knew it would be hard, I knew there'd be major challenges, but I also knew that I had to do it, that it was up to me to get us out of that situation. And it really did completely change both of their lives,
Yeah.
and the trajectory of their lives. I I look at them now, and that's been now almost 15 years, and it's yeah, we've come a long way, and I do not regret a single second of it. Challenges, yes. Sleepless nights, yes. But well worth it.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges that you were faced during that transition that you found yourself able to overcome and bounce back from?
Um, Well, definitely, like I mentioned, the whole complete career change was part
Mhm.
of it. And my previous work in medical genetics, I worked mainly in hospital labs and public education. So I had a job that I had to go to for certain hours and, that typical job.
Mhm.
And I knew, given our situation, that I needed more flexibility than that.
Mhm.
And that's when I switched into financial planning because I knew I would have more control over my schedule. I could work closer to home. And so that was one of the things that got me switching there. And I think too, just being that, for my kids, they were both going in opposite directions based on the situation we'd been living in. So my son was getting more into the just being an angry, frustrated teenage boy because of just what he was living in. And my daughter was going the opposite direction. She was really shutting down and getting small and just disappearing into a corner. And so to really be there for them as they came through that and as they kind of got their feet back on the ground and realized, okay, now I can start over. Now I'm in a safe space to really figure out what I want to do with my life. And so I think just the challenges around that, being
Yeah.
that rock for them as they come through it, and obviously for myself having to start all over, get us a new place to live, only when paying the bills, all those kind of things. There was a lot of major challenges on my side, but uh, yeah, actually, in one of the first books that I was involved in, I told part of that story, and then one of the kind of things that kept me moving, I literally had a little mantra, I guess you'd call it, but it was chin up, keep moving. And sometimes that there was nothing else I could hold on to in my life. Everything was just, chaos. But it was that just chin up, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. And that I think is one of the things that really got me through all of that chaos, through that kind of storm that we were living in,
Yes.
and then out the other end into the sunshine, was just that whole attitude of just keep moving, keep moving.
I think you set a very, very good example for your children, for them to be able to really witness what strength, courage, and resilience really is. I mean, that if you had to pick three words, that would be it, like that would be it. Those would be the three
Yeah.
words I would choose for you. You know what I mean? Like that was not an easy time in your life, and you were able to keep going, keep your chin up, and you kept going, and you kept your focus on the values, and you kept your focus on your children and what was best for them, and that's a huge thing to do.
Yeah, no, exactly. And actually that's where the name of my company really comes from, inspired tenacity, because tenacity really sums up all of that resilience and courage, and just stick at it and keep going. And people always ask me, where did I come up with that name? And I think there was something else that kind of came through, that intuition of what I was going through, and what those kind of next steps were. Because to me, it, into or inspiration and tenacity are two of the big things we need to get through any major change in life. And I always say courage is the other word that goes with those. Is you need inspiration of what you're going to do next. You need the courage to jump in and just do it. But then you
Mhm.
need the tenacity to just stick with it and keep moving forward. And so that really is my company name, sums up that
Yeah,
big major change in life, and how do we do it.
yeah. Now, I'm curious to know, because when you talk about, inspiration, was there anybody that was an inspiration to you during all of the transition that you were going through?
That's a very good question. While I was going through the first parts of it, I don't think so. There wasn't really any role model I had. But definitely as I stepped into, especially taking on my own business and starting that whole entrepreneurial journey, there's been a lot of women that have been my role models and inspiration of, just seeing what they've come through, what they're doing next. And I think too, that's part of what inspired doing the books, is because I get so much value from hearing other people's stories, that I knew that, the more I can help other people share their stories,
Hmm.
then in a way, I get value from hearing all of those stories too.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. You're surrounded by so much, you know, powerful and, women empowerment. And yeah, I get that. And, I know that you're also an international speaker. So when did you start bringing yourself into the speaker world? Were you already authoring before you got into the speaker um,
Yes, I
position?
definitely started more with the writing end and getting published, and I would say it was from opportunities that came from being in the different books, that that even planted that idea that speaking was the next thing. Because I don't think it had, again, really been part of there. There was no real planned journey, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so I would say it was from being in the books, and then opportunities come up for like podcast interviews like this, or other summits and events like that. That doors open, and you choose to walk into them or you don't. And I have definitely embraced that whole thing of, finding new communities. And I love being on different podcasts like this, where we can, really share our journeys and inspire each other. And so that's a big part of the speaking that I've been doing, is virtual.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's one of my goals for next year, is to start doing more traveling and speaking in real life. So that's one of my next things.
That's awesome. Now, do you speak a lot about the books, or do you speak a lot about your, the trials, the tribulations, and what you've overcome to get here?
I would say most of it is kind of that journey and what's brought me here in the first place, and what's been inspiring me along the way. And then of course the books are always wrapped in around that as, what I've created out of that journey that I've been on. And one of the big focuses of my vision has always been around supporting, especially midlife women, to step into new things and new possibilities. Because and when I say midlife, people always ask me, well, what age is that? And to me, midlife is the time in life when you kind of hit a period when you realize what I'm doing right now is not what I want to keep doing, that there's something else. There's something else I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And I've met women in their 30s that have already hit that, and others, I would say it's in their 40s and 50s that they
Mhm.
start getting that inkling that there's something else I'm supposed to be doing. And so to really help midlife women to see that we're surrounded by opportunities and possibilities. And our culture kind of has told us that after the age of 50ish, we're old, we're obsolete, nobody really wants to hear what we have to say, and it's almost assumed that we'll just curl up in a corner and disappear. And a big part of my mission is to make sure that we know that no, that's not what we're doing, unless, of course, you wish to do that. But for most of us, I would say in our 50s, 60s, and 70s, some of the women in my group are in their 80s. And that's our time to really figure out what we want to do with our life and what's
Mhm.
next for us without worrying about our kids and what our family needs from us. But really, what do I want to do? How do I do it? And especially now, where the whole world is like this on Zoom, where we really can pursue relationships and communities and really any theme you can come up with, there is a group of people who are doing that. So
Yeah.
whether it's, building communities, whether it's focused on the environment, whether it's focused on supporting other parents, literally any theme you can come up with, there is a group of people who want to join you in that. And so that's a big part of everything that I do. And I think that will be kind of the next step in speaking, will be more from that perspective of,
Hmm.
really encouraging women to think about what do you want to do next, and to know that you are surrounded by a community who's supporting you in that. So
That's awesome. So age is just a number. It should not be,
oh
you should
yes,
not have to put a cap on your dreams and
yeah,
aspirations just because you've hit a certain point in your life and society has told you that you're done at,
yeah,
you hit
exactly,
50, like there's nothing else. Like you just kind of go the next 30, 40 years, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, I mean, my stepmother is, let's say she's, in her 70s. And when COVID hit, she took that opportunity to finally pursue one of her dreams and she wrote a book.
Oh cool.
And then she published it. It's on Amazon. And then she decided she was going to write another book. And she wrote the first book was about her life, her story. The second book was about the COVID lockdown and all of the frontline workers.
Oh
And then
wow.
she just put out another book where it's all
Oh,
short
cool.
stories. And now she's working on a fourth one. And, you know, she's like, you know what? Why? Why not?
Yeah,
She's always
yeah,
wanted to
exactly.
do it. And and it's really turned into something that she's grown to really love. And so now she just can't stop writing,
Yeah, exactly. Once you get going. Well, and that's just it too, because you think about our traditional model of retirement that we've all been taught. You work your butt off for 40 years, you get to 60-ish, and then you retire. And how that's generally been presented to most of us as we grew up was that you would now not need to do anything. You would putter in your garden, maybe look after your grandkids and do some traveling and golfing,
Yeah, I have to do
and that might
something.
have that might have worked okay, you know 40 years ago when people's life expectancy was, 70ish.
Mhm.
So people would retire around 65. They really only had about 5 years to go.
Yeah.
Whereas now we have to plan to live into our 90s and possibly our hundreds.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at retirement in your 60s or 50s, you've got 20, 30, 40 years. That in most of, for I would say for most of us, a lot of those years will be very healthy, productive years. And so
Hmm.
it really is like planning a whole next chapter in your life of what do I actually want to do with the next 20 years,
Yeah.
and not just, oh, I'm just going to kill time till I'm done. Right. So I think that mind shift from what we've been taught around retirement and what to do next in our life, there really is a shift there. And to me, I think that old model of retirement in general, where we just stop working, I think that's going to disappear too, because keeping our minds busy, keeping ourselves socially active, keeping ourselves learning new things,
Hmm.
those are all the things that keep our brains healthy and alive, and our emotional health as well, and our physical health. So for us to be able to maintain a good life into our 80s and 90s and hundreds, we need to have all of those things ongoing.
Yeah.
So I see it more that people will maybe stop what they were doing for work, but then start little businesses, or volunteer work, or something that's more of an ongoing work type thing,
Yeah.
but it's what they want to do.
Yeah. And it's more fulfilling when it's something that you want to do. It's something that you're passionate about. Like you said, it could be starting a business, it could be volunteering. And I think that, as long as it's fueling your soul,
Yeah,
that is just going to keep you going. I mean, if you just kind of
exactly.
say, all right, I'm 65, I retired, and I'm just going to hang out now. I mean, I think and you're not, and you tell yourself, well, I'm 65 and retired. I'm too old for that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, no, you're not. You know?
It's exactly, exactly.
I remember, and now this is kind of a cute little story. So I used to have really, really short pixie cut hair, and I used to color it like all sorts of fun colors, like reds and, pinks. And at one point I had purple hair. And I'm on the escalator in a department store going down, and there's a woman who's probably maybe in her 80s going up. And she looked at me, she goes, "Oh, I love your hair." And I was like, "Thank you." She goes, "I wish I could do that." And I'm like, "Do it." She's
Yeah,
she's like, "I'm too old." I'm like, "No, you're not. Do it." And she's like, "Okay." You know what I mean? And it's like,
perfect. I love it.
and it's like even what you were saying. I mean, some people are hearing these things in their 30s that, that this isn't what I want to do anymore. And I know I'm supposed to be doing something else. And I always say that when I'm a recovering alcoholic in November, I'll have 13 years sober. And when I got sober and I started to share my story, and I started to see how it was helpful and impactful to others. Because at first, it took me a while to realize that my story was something that needed to be told and that it was helping people. So I started to share it more and more, and then I just kept getting this feeling like I am meant for so much more. And it really didn't dawn on me until I was in my late 30s that, oh my God, I'm a coach. Like I'm supposed to be helping people. I'm supposed to be doing more of this. And that was when I just had to navigate to find my way to get it going. And it took a few years, but I mean, I'm in my early 40s now, and I'm not stopping. I
Yeah,
would love to eventually get out of my career that I've been in for 23 years. It doesn't fulfill me. I think about this every morning when I get up. I think about the women I'm going to help. I think about the work, the mission, the this what I'm set out to do. I think about that every day, all day, from the second I open my eyes to the minute I hit the pillow at night. It's just it sets my soul on fire.
yeah, exactly.
And I'm like I said, I mean, I didn't start this podcast until a few months ago. So I mean, I was 40, I'm 41. So it's like it doesn't matter how old you are. If you get that calling and you have that passion and that dream, go for it. And
Exactly.
don't let what society tells you
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
you from moving forward.
Exactly. I was 48 when I made the switch from medical genetics to financial planning. I
Amazing.
did the full certified financial planner, worked for 10 years in that career, and then I was 57 when I started my business. And now I'm 60 and yeah, I have no plans of slowing down. I am just branching out and building more around me.
It sets your soul on fire.
Exactly.
That is so awesome that you have been able to make these transitions. And, this message, I think, is something that we all need to hear, that you don't have to hold yourself back. Just because society said at 50 you stop. No, you don't. It's like,
Exactly. And I think the more we kind of look at that as ourselves as a role model, both to other women in our age groups, to younger women, to our kids, that the more we can show that example of us doing different things. And I was talking to someone the other day about, movies and how midlife women, I would say in most movies, are portrayed as the grandmother, as the kind of the background person.
mhm,
And I was actually talking to someone the other day who's writing a screenplay, and the main character will be a woman in her 60s who is taking on her own life, going off and doing her own thing, and I just love that. It's like, yeah, we're not just the grandma in the background. We are the main character doing our own thing.
mhm, for sure. Oh, wow. And I think it's funny because even men go through this, right? So I'm thinking also about how my husband, he's in substance abuse. He's a substance abuse counselor. He loves helping people, but he also has been, it's almost like he hears this in the back of his mind and he realizes that he would have been an amazing lawyer. And like he's always saying that I would have been a great lawyer. And I'm like, so then go to school. And he's like, I'm not doing that now. And I'm like, why not? Why not? Because I'm in my 40s. So what?
Exactly.
Even his mom
Exactly.
was just like, so what? Go back to
Yeah.
school and do it because you absolutely could make a great lawyer. And it's like, if that's what your heart is telling you, then, and that's something that you're constantly thinking about, you know what? We'll figure out the financial end of everything. I mean, money's always coming to you. You know what I mean? It's always
Yeah.
there. You just got to figure out the way, you know what I mean? You just got to figure it
Yes.
out,
Yes.
come up with a plan, go live your dream.
Yeah. And especially to go into law with the life experience he already has. Like, imagine how far ahead you already are just based on your life experience.
Mhm.
You like you say, put together that academic part that you have to have in place, but to have that life experience also that you're stepping into it with puts you in a whole different category to other
Yes.
people graduating in the same program.
Yeah. I think that I mean, I remember back even when I was younger, and it was, you go to high school, then you go to college, you start your career, and, X, Y, and Z, you get married, you get the house, you have the kids, and it's like this is what we're programmed to do. But
Yeah,
how many of us really actually know at 18 years old what we want for the rest of our lives? We haven't even lived yet.
yeah,
And then you go off to college, and I don't know about you, but for me, I mean, I did not that was not my journey. I mean, I dropped out of high school. I dropped out at 18, and because I wasn't going to graduate until I was almost 20 for other reasons. Long story I'm not going to get into, but I would have been almost 20 by the time I graduated. And so I made the decision, got my GED, and then I got into the dental field. I didn't go to college. I didn't go to college. I started going to college a little bit later in my 20s. I took night classes and I was going to go into dental hygiene, but that was because I thought that that was what I was supposed to do, but it really
Yeah.
had,
Yeah.
I don't even, you know what I mean? Like dental assisting has been a rewarding career, but I have had no desire to go further with it
Right.
because I
Yeah.
always knew that it wasn't something that I wanted to stay in. And there was a point where I did leave and explore other career paths. And then I wasn't happy with those. So I went back to dentistry because it was what I knew and I knew I was good at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And there's jobs.
I didn't get married till I was 39 years old. I don't, you know, my story did not go based on how society told me it was supposed to go. And I
Well,
think
most
there,
of mine did go how it was supposed to go, what we're told we're supposed to do. So, like you say, graduate high school, go to university, graduate, get married, buy the house, have the kids, start your career. And, but really, then I would say it was probably yeah, probably around in my late 30s, early 40s. And it just kind of occurred to me that I really had done all of that just following that, what I was supposed to do.
mm,
There wasn't a lot of real thought around like what are my real skills, what are my passions, what will I be happy with, and so when I made that choice to leave my husband, and that it also obviously brought in all those thoughts about, okay, do I want to do my job full time now? Can I see myself doing this job for the next 20 years? And as I went through that thinking, I literally could feel in my gut when I would think that, okay, could I do this for another 20 years? And my gut would just clench. Like I could, that message coming from my body telling me, no, you're
mhm,
not doing this for the next 20 years,
yes,
and I could have ignored that. I could have just said, okay, no, I'm just going to stick with what I'm doing because this is what I've always done. But I'm so glad that I listened to that intuition and gave my gut that credit of, okay, it's telling me something very clearly and I
yes,
need to listen.
yeah. You know, I feel like, see, I had a lot of, you know, like I said, I was an alcoholic, so I never really had a clear level mind when I was in my 20s to really be able to listen to that. I just had this something inside me that told me that that wasn't dentistry was not supposed to be a forever long thing. It wasn't supposed to, it was almost like dental assisting was supposed to be a gateway. But like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up until I was about 37 years old, maybe even 38. And and here I am. But when I was 18 years old, first of all, podcasts, coaching,
Yeah, none
that
of
was
that.
not really a thing. So it's like, you know, we weren't taught about public speaking. We weren't taught about, I mean, writing, yes. And I will say that I used to write in high school. I wrote a lot of poetry. That was how
Hmm.
I really coped. One of probably the only ways I coped in a healthy way with my parents' divorce and all of the things that were happening with me when I was young. I wrote poetry.
Oh,
And
cool.
I always wanted to make turn my poems into a book. And then I got away from it because substance abuse and alcohol and all that. But I never really heard all of that calling. And now that I heard my calling and I'm living it and I'm working toward it, all of those other dreams and aspirations are coming back to life. Like, why haven't I wrote a book? Why haven't I published my poetry? You know, like what's holding me back? Like I want to, and so now it's like that's something that I want to get back into doing. A
Right.
lot of things
Yeah.
came later for me in life.
But now you've got all that life experience and wisdom behind you to really step right in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, you know, society can't predict what God's plan is for us. And sometimes you have to really screw up and make mistakes to grow into the person you're supposed to be. Because life is teaching you lessons that are so valuable and will take you so much further if you take a moment to listen. Because our greatest teacher is right in here. It's right up there. It's around us. It's
I
life.
agree. Yep. Life experience is what, yeah, brings it
Yeah,
all together.
100%. Ah, I love this conversation. I'm feeling very empowered right now.
That's right. Let's go do it. What's next?
What's next? Well, you and I are going to make a call so that we can talk about an anthology that I'd like to do at some point, you know?
I love it. It's perfect.
Yes, yes. And I think that, you know, from my experience being a co-author in an anthology, I think that they are incredible, incredible books because you are getting so much value from other people from their life experiences. And it's not only, inspiring, but it's educational and it really gets you thinking, you know, and then just being alongside other people as an author who are, that's just, I love it.
No, me too. Just the collaborations that come of it and the friendships that come out of the
Yes.
different projects. It is amazing. It's hard to describe to anybody. When people ask me like, what is the value of being in these books? And I can list a few different things, but it's really like you got to do it to really get it.
The value is just, it goes way more deeper than, you know, than being having a book out with your name is in or your name is on, because like you said, there's friendships and there's, that are built and opportunities that come and, it just takes you that much further along in your journey to where you want to be. It fills your cup.
Yep, yep, exactly. I love it.
So, well, we are out of time, Cathy. Thank you so much for coming on here today and sharing your journey with us. If people want to get in touch with you to talk to you about, maybe putting their own anthology together, how can they reach you?
Well, the easiest way is LinkedIn is where I'm most active on social media. And my website is inspiredtenacity.com. And on there, you'll find some free downloads of my previous books and some lists of my current projects that people can jump into and buttons on there as well to book a time on my calendar to just chat and connect about what your goals are and what you'd like to do as far as being an author. And over the next year or so, I'll be creating some different retreats and things like that as well, bringing women together. So I would love to chat with everyone.
Well, thank you so much. And again, you're amazing. You are such an inspiration.
Well, thank you very
Thank
much for having me
you.
on. It's
Thank
always an
you.
honor.
And if you would like to connect with me, if I can be a guide in your journey, please feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook under Lori A. Murphy, Empowerment Coach for Women, or you can reach me at through my email at M as in Michael C. empowerment@gmail.com. These contact information will be in the description of the podcast. Please reach out to me. Please reach out to Cathy. And until next time, let go of fear and let your spirit shine.